Good evening to you all and good morning from San Francisco. I hope everyone had a good weekend. May I request you to please put your cameras on if you don't mind? Thank you to those who have put on their cameras. Um, we have about 11 participants and I'm hoping a few more will join. So, we have completed 1 week of our course and it's a 3 week course. So, we're through one third of the course. So, that's some progress there. And we have to hang in there for the next 2 more weeks. I hope it's going okay for you all. Um, Today, the main item on the agenda is that we are going to discuss the farm electronics case. I hope everybody's been able to upload their individual memos into my courses, and in a little bit we'll divide you into your teams and give you a question, and you can go off and discuss that in the breakout rooms for about 20 minutes and then nominate one or two people from each group to provide some kind of consensus or majority opinion on the answer. So that will be our first group case presentation. But before that, there's a few administrative things that I want to get into. Let's start out with Petri's presentation. We haven't met since Thursday evening, right? So, what did you all think about Petri's presentation? What did you learn from it? I just want to recap for a few minutes, revisit and see what were the learnings from Petri's presentation on vario.com. Any thoughts? You can either put it in the chat or you can unmute your microphone and speak.
I thought it was quite interesting to figure out the method that Vario used to discuss their or to figure out how which customers would be willing to buy and how to approach those customers, like the website tracking and see if they watch their stuff and send them messages and stuff like that. Seems a little as a consumer, it worries me a little, but as a possible future marketing employee, I feel like that's a very interesting method and really effective method, probably finding new customers and selling your product.
Yes, thank you, Eric. That's a good observation that they use a lot of analytics and software to track people from visitors to prospects and track them all the way until they become a customer, and that might seem in violation of privacy as far as an individual is concerned. However, it's a very common practice in the industry, and there will be some fine print at the beginning when somebody registers with Vario that they are allowing them to track them, right? So it is permission based. I don't think they do it in violation of anybody's consent. But that's just like me telling you all that I want to record this Zoom, and I put it on, and then you give me consent, but there may be certain times during the class that you do not wish me to track you on the video cam, and then you can put your camera off. But one thing to remember is that Vario's customers are not individuals like you and me. They are enterprises, right? They are businesses, they are government. And so whoever is participating with Vario is actually doing it because they have an interest in their products and services, right? That's the beauty of inbound marketing. There's much less of cold calls, if you recall from Petri's discussion. In fact, some of you may have even recommended a little more proactive approach to contacting customers or prospects, right? So nowadays, with digital marketing, the emphasis has shifted from outbound marketing to inbound marketing. That is, the marketeers wait for the visitors or prospects to say that they are interested in our content, and then we engage with them and give them the information and white papers and webinars and so on as they want. But thank you, Eric, for starting the discussion on this. Anybody else would like to share? What did you find interesting, or what did you learn from Petri's talk on last Thursday on Vario? Had anybody heard of Vario before, or was this the first time you heard about Vario as a company?
At least I had heard about the company before, but I didn't really know like any details.
Right. Thank you, Sarah. What did you get out of it? What was it that caught your attention from Petri's presentation?
Well, I think that I guess I hadn't really thought about like how widely their products like can actually be used in like different companies. And then also I agree with what Eric said, that it was really interesting to like hear about their marketing strategies and everything, because it was a bit different than what I maybe like anticipated. But yeah.
Okay. So I'm glad that it gave you a different perspective, because a lot of this B2B marketing is very different from consumer packaged goods marketing, right? Anybody else would like to share? What is it that you got out of Petri's presentation? What was interesting? What was surprising? Anything, any takeaways? Anything that you learned from his career profile? How has that progressed? He was like any of you 10 years ago. He was sitting in these particular, well, now we are not in a classroom or thing, but I'm sure he didn't have Zoom back then, but he pretty much went through your own program. And, this is a very typical successful profile, I would say, is that many of our bachelor's students from Aalto Mikkeli will go on to the MSc program in Helsinki and then get into careers. It's interesting that he started out in customer service in financial services, right? That was his first job in Santander. And then he eventually gravitated more towards the digital business to business marketing. And, he seems to be doing extremely well. This title, his title has growth marketing in it. Is that a common title? Have you come across this in other companies? Growth marketing. Normally you hear of VP marketing or director of marketing. This is something unique I see in startups, is because, or medium size. I wouldn't say that Vario is a startup. They've got about 140 employees, but you can see that small and medium companies, they are much more obsessed with growth. When you're a huge company, of course, growth is also very welcome, but it's very difficult to move the needle at large companies like Apple or Google, because your base sales are so large that even a small percentage gain is very hard to achieve growth. So this is an interesting new title that, you know, whatever is his charge, Petri's responsibility is to always grow customers, new acquisitions, plus for existing customers, get them to buy more. And now I wanted to ask you if there were any concepts that you saw from the discussions in class or from the chapters and the PowerPoints. Were there any concepts that were reinforced by Petri in terms of what the practice is in the industry? He told you how they do their enterprise marketing or B2B marketing at Vario. Were there any things you thought resonated in terms of the theory and the concepts that we learned in the first week?
I guess for me, what sort of stood out at least was thinking about what position Vario is in at the moment in the buyer and seller relationship, since Vario seems to be sort of, sort of at the forefront of that technology. So I imagine that they could have potentially a little bit more power in the relationship than you might see with other sorts of supplier buyer relationships. So that was just interesting.
Yeah, very good. Daniel, remember that they have only 5 people in marketing and about 35 people in sales. And that's the sales people are the ones who do the face to face, right? The 5 marketing people are more into, digital advertising and what content marketing, what to put up on the web and the engagement with the prospects, right? But at some point, the prospects are converted into leads and they are given to the salespeople, and then they have to actually make appointments. Now maybe they are doing it in Zoom, right? Show them the demo of the product. And he kept on saying that this is high end, right? This is not a cheap product. So can you imagine the amount of education that has to be done by the salespeople to convince, like a designer in an automobile company, that this will help you to do better designs in globally dispersed teams, because it is so much more vivid than just a Zoom call, right? You can be immersed in the space together with somebody, from Europe to Asia. I think the example was of some designer in Europe talking to Kia in South Korea and, telling them, showing them the new model of the car and getting so deep into the visual design of it. So definitely the B2B relationship is a very high touch one. That may not have been as evident, except that there are 35 salespeople in I think they're in 3 different countries now, or 4 different countries, including Finland, USA, and then what were some of the other countries? Were they in South Korea for sure, and maybe a couple of other European countries? But there's so much more potential for them for going into newer countries, right? With those relationships. And it was interesting to me when I asked the question, why is your US office in Washington, DC? Because that office serves the defense contractors who get orders from the government, and the seat of government is in Washington, DC. just like it's in Helsinki for Finland, right? So you need to be, if you want to have a good relationship, you need to be able to visit. You know, your customer, if Vario's customer is Lockheed Martin and Boeing, but Lockheed Martin and Boeing's customers are the Pentagon, the Defense Department, and they're all located in Washington, D.C. So you want to be in B2B marketing, you want to be close to where your customer or your prospective customers are, because it will require so much more close collaboration when you want to, design something customized for your customer or your customer's customer. So thank you, Daniel. That was a good observation. Anybody else wants to reflect on what might have been interesting about Petri's talk on Thursday? That's the topic we're discussing right now. Okay, so anyhow, I hope you all enjoyed that talk. He comes every year to my summer class, and I'm very grateful. I think it's important for you guys to see the potential. In my mind, there are lots of employment opportunities in B2B marketing. Many young students like yourselves, they feel an affinity towards consumer packaged goods marketing because you're familiar with that. Those are the products that you purchase and consume and are familiar with. But guess what? Consumer marketing, the employment opportunities are quite saturated compared to B2B marketing, because B2B marketing is a much more growth area. It's a much more, they need more marketeers than perhaps consumer marketing, where more people apply to. So that was another reason to get Petri to talk to you. Okay, any other closing thoughts on Petri before we move on to other topics? All right, now the next thing is that this Thursday, August 5th, you have, according to the schedule, there is a midterm exam. Okay, halfway through the course, we need to have a midterm exam. So I thought today I'll share with you a little bit about the design of the exam, so that you can, prepare yourself and what the expectations are. So I'm going to pull up a template and then share it with you. So please bear with me. Just give me a thumbs up if you can see this document. It's called International Business to Business Marketing Midterm Exam, August 5th. You're able to see it? Okay, thank you. So it's going to be 80 minutes, closed book, closed notes, and the format is going to be very short essays. Okay, here is the question. For 4 of the following 6 concepts, so you have a choice. There will be 6 concepts listed, but you have to select any 4, the best 4, okay, that you know. And your answer must cover 3 things. The first is, what is your understanding of the concept? So these are technical concepts. The example I've given you under 1 is original equipment manufacturer. So who remembers that we discussed last week what an original equipment manufacturer is? Can you write it in your own words? Right? So can somebody recap from the concepts what you remember from last week? How would you define or explain who is an original equipment manufacturer? Any volunteers?
Is it manufacturers that produces products that is used as a component in another company's product, and then that product is sold to the end customer?
Yeah, is that Thin?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Thin. So it is the manufacturer who buys components from different suppliers, assembles the full product, puts its brand on it, and then sells it to other business customers. So the emphasis is on manufacturer. It is a manufacturer of a product, any product that buys components from many different suppliers. It puts its own brand. That's important. When you say original, then you're saying that this is my product and this is my brand. And then that finished product is is sold to other business customers. Okay, so it's not the supplier and it's not the customer, but it's the manufacturer in between. Okay, so that's how we explain the understanding of the concept. Now, why is this important to a B2B marketer? That's the second part of the question. Who would like to volunteer? uh, why is the OEM manufacturer important to a business to business marketer? Any thoughts? So this is important because if you are a marketer of any components or raw materials or equipment, then the OEM is your most important customer, right? They are your first line customers. They are going to buy pretty much large quantities of things from you, right? And because they put their own brand in it, they are going to be very conscious about quality, right? OEMs, if your product or service is critical to their assembled product, then they are going to be pretty quality conscious. They are not going to be just concerned about cost, and they're going to work with you collaboratively to order large quantities. So the importance is that they can be a big source of revenue and profits for a B2B marketer. And then can you illustrate the use of a concept by a B2B marketer with a real example of a company, product, or brand? So who can give me an example of an OEM in a relationship? I think we discussed many examples. One would be, for example, the Toyota Motor Company is an OEM that buys from Michelin tires. It buys tires, right? So for Michelin, if I'm a B2B marketer from Michelin, then Toyota is one of my OEMs, right? Ford may be another, Kia may be a third. So any of these big named auto manufacturers could be a OEM for Michelin. Okay. So just to complete the question, parts 1, 2, and 3 have 4, 3, and 3 points respectively. That means that the most important part of the question is understanding the concept, and then the importance and the example have 3 points each. 10 points per concept. It's a 40-point test. So you'll get some raw score out of 40. You have 80 minutes. Last year, when I gave a midterm, I had it for only the same number of questions for 60 minutes, and the feedback was that there wasn't enough time. So now I've extended it to 80 minutes. So you need to budget your time well, right? If it's 80 minutes for 4 questions, don't spend more than 20 minutes on any question, right? And just in terms of the exam, this will be in my courses, and the questions will be in my courses, and even you have to reply in my courses. So there's no paper involved. You have to read the questions on the computer. You have to type in your answers, and it's a time test. After 80 minutes, the exam will close. So you do need to submit it. Maybe after 75 minutes, stop writing and then submit the test. So let me pause here and see if you have any questions or any clarifications you need. I can offer you in terms of the midterm. Oh yes, the coverage will be the first 9 chapters, because up to Wednesday we'll be finishing chapter 9. So chapter 1 through chapter 9 is the coverage of the midterm exam. So again, you need to choose the 4 concepts very well. Sometimes you choose the concept that you think but it turns out it's wrong. You just don't remember it. So it does require you to do some preparation, go over the PowerPoints and your notes before the exam, because as Sarah pointed out earlier, there are some new things that you're learning in this course. Those are the ones that I'm likely to bring up. What is unique to B2B marketing? Any thoughts, any reactions? Okay, so we're done with the exam. While you're preparing, if you come across any concepts that you're not clear about, shoot me an email or request some time for office hours. I'm happy to go over anything that you need to have a refresher. So those are the administrative or recap issues that I wanted to cover. Are there any things that you would like to bring up of an administrative nature? Anything that we need to address before I get into today's case on farm electronics? Okay, I don't see anybody having any comments. So I'm going to go next now to the case itself. So here are 5 questions on the case that we will do in team exercises. But each team has to do only 1 question depending on your team number. So, and we'll follow the same teams that you have been assigned to. Okay. So, each one of you belongs to one of 5 teams. So team number 1 will do question 1, team number 2 will do question 2, and so on. So first of all, please take a picture of these questions so that you know what you have to answer. And then let's go over these questions. Team number 1 will do: in January 2019, Farm Electronics seems to be in a good financial position. Can it continue to maintain the status quo, or does it need to grow? Justify your answer. like that, each team needs to read the question and tell me right now if you need any clarification on your specific question. So the questions are quite clear, or anybody has any clarifications they need? You've all taken a picture of this? All right, so now I'm going to assign you to your breakout rooms. Just bear with me for a minute. So team number 1 has Hafiz, and then Anton, Emma, and oh no, there's two Emmas. So I think the Emma is Emma Peterson, right? Who's in team number 1? Yeah. Okay. So that team is done. Then I go to team number 2 has got Ella and Daniel and Elisa. And then go to team number 3. Team number 3 is Redwan and Rasmus and Jade. That's done. Team number 4 has Ellie. No, Ellie is not there. Simal. Team number 4 has Simal and Alexi and Tim. Okay. And then team number 5 has got Eric, G, Kalle and Sarah Maria. All right, so I'm going to open all the rooms. Please accept that. Let's try for 20 minutes. So we'll come back at 54, right? 54 minutes past the hour is when I will call you back into the rooms. If you need me for any clarification, please come back to the main room and ask me. Good luck with this assignment.
Hello. Could you
Yes.
move me to the room? I have a problem with my Zoom.
Okay.
To room number 5.
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you.
We're just waiting for one more team to show back up here. Okay, looks like everybody is back. Um, I take it that you had enough time to get to an answer, right? So why don't we take a short 5 minute break? It's about halfway through, and then we'll come back and go around for the presentations, right? So I'm turning off my camera and mic, and I'll be back at 2 past the hour. Okay, I'm back, and I hope you can put on your video cameras back on as well. Again, thanks to everyone who put on their video cameras. Now we will go to the group presentations. We'll go in the order of the team numbers, and for whoever is the presenter, it's really important to have your video camera on so that you can be more persuasive. Again, the scenario is that this question was asked to you by the key decision maker or the protagonist or upper management, and so now you're addressing the issue that was given to you. So let me invite team number 1 to please nominate their speakers and then proceed. It's informal, you can just speak in terms of your notes. So who is the representative from team number 1? Yeah, go ahead, Hafiz.
Hi. As like our question is about financial position of Farm Electronics, their position in 2019 is very good, but as compared to 2019, if we see indicators, it says that like they are making good, like they maintain, and like if we check their fixed asset, they decrease, but as compared to fixed asset investment increase. It's in page number 11, and if we go to their current asset, it's also says that like sundry debtor increase. Sundry debtor means like someone who has to pay them, like someone who bought something in credit, as it discussed in case study, because some of the company they wanted for 90 days credit, so maybe they also go with that. That's why it's increased. It also shows that cash at bank increase, that is asset, as compared to 2019. Cash in hand also increase. Closing stock decrease, that shows that their sale increase as compared to 2019. Now if we'll go to their liability session, their liability increase, that I can assume that as it discussed at page 6, like they are going to make a new factory or something like that, that can increase their capacity of making more transformer or their product to sell. So I can assume that maybe they invest there, so that's why it increase. Bank overdraft is remain same as their provisions, that increase. Sundry credit also increase, but overall if we see their balance sheet, that indicates that their gross profit increase. That's mean they are making better as compared to 2019, because in 2019 their gross profit was 63,478.94, but in 2020 it projected 71,086. That means they are making good as compared to 2019. Same in opening stock, it decreased, but as I said that, because in the balance sheet First part is about like their sale. Like their sale increased 4,83,779. That increased 50,000. It's mean huge difference as compared to 2019. So in at last we can see their net profit after deduction all expenses. It says that they are making 18,724 as compared to 2019. It's more than in 2020 as compared to 2019. So as we assume, like they have to maintain this status quo. So I think it's that this is a good position. That's all.
Okay, let's give a round of applause to Hafiz. Thank you for your presentation. Now we get to do a little bit of Q&A, right? So we'll ask the audience to raise some questions, and either Hafiz or any other of the team members could reply. Okay. So let me start out by asking, you did a good financial analysis. You pointed out all the places, all the metrics where they've increased or decreased. I think finally your net conclusion was that profits are up, sales are up, right? So they are in a good position. But the question really in number one is, should they maintain the status quo or should they put an emphasis on growth? Have you answered that question?
Yeah, I said that maintain, because so far they are making good.
Okay.
So yeah.
So this is important. The recommendation is to maintain what they are doing and not put any emphasis on growth. So let me throw it open to the other members of the class. What do you think about their recommendation to maintain their sales and profits at the levels that they are?
Could I ask a clarifying question that came up in our discussion? So at least for me, I didn't, when I was considering answering the question, even in the writing, was what year should we consider? Should we consider the year 2019 or the year contemporary idea? Because
No, it should always be January of 2019. You have to put yourself back there because, after that there was COVID and all these other things. So
yeah, that's kind of what I had in mind too.
That's an important clarification for everyone. When you do case analysis, you have to present your recommendations at the time the case ends, when it was written, not today.
Okay. Well, in that case, I would have a comment on that. Especially, I feel like it seems like the company does have a good backbone currently. Especially like the two companies they have are pretty reliable. The two main companies they sell to are pretty reliable. But I feel like getting too complacent there might be problematic, considering that India's current position in the world stage, considering the current Made in India program, when they're incentivizing multinationals to have an impact on the market. I feel like, and Westernization overall is being incentivized there. So I feel like just staying still might cause other companies that are more willing to explore these new possibilities that have been brought with the economic liberalization of Modi. But yeah.
So would Hafiz or any of the team members of Team 1 like to respond to Eric's comment?
I can. So yeah, I actually agree with Eric about the fact that okay, according to the final statement, the company is good, but of course there's other factors to consider, like the fact that maybe these two companies could be affected by some other things, and maybe their business will start going south or something, and then our company won't do as great in the future because they're really reliable on these just few companies. So yeah, I also agree with that statement.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I have one thing as well, like due to COVID, like everyone is affected. So if, as Eric said, like, I don't know, actually I couldn't understand fully, but if they try to make something more, but due to COVID, they affected and they are not able to achieve what they are investing. So then what happened? Like due to COVID, I'm saying due to COVID, so they can maintain in COVID, if you maintain, so later you have more chances because market and everything will be open. So you have more opportunity as compared to now.
If I could comment on that, I do agree. I think it's a valid argument to make when you consider COVID. But if we consider 2019 January, of course, COVID is not a factor because we don't know it yet. We can't really, at that time, we don't know COVID is happening. But if let's say that we would know COVID is happening, or let's not say we would know COVID happening, like if you think contemporarily, that's what I considered at first, was the idea that if you still have, looking at the balance statements they have, if you would consider that those who are under COVID and they're doing good under COVID, they're fine. COVID is actually a great opportunity for expansion, because there's not a lot of competition for you if you start expanding. If we consider that they would be doing well under COVID as well, I feel like that's actually a pretty good opportunity. Sorry. Thank you.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, well, one thing I would like to add is whether you in January 2019, we have no idea of COVID, but whether it's COVID or not, there's always uncertainty in business, right? There's always going to be ups and downs. The theory of economic cycles, that's always there. So the question is, if you maintain and there is any kind of downturn, where is the rainy day fund? Where is the slack? Don't you want to prepare for any future downturn, whatever the source may be? And will that happen if you just maintain?
I would probably prefer like, yeah, it looks stable right now, so they should maintain the current relationships and keep going with those, but also look into alternative options that are like less risky expanding options.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from any of the other class members?
And I think, is there any like correct answer, or it's all about?
Yeah, very good. So there is no right or wrong answer, but there are more defensible answers and there are less defensible answers. It's a matter of persuasion, right?
Yeah, I prepared according to COVID. Yeah. But after that, Eric raised point, so it makes some difference.
Okay. Any other comments? Thank you. Then give him another round of applause for stepping up to do the presentation. And now we can go to team number 2. Who would represent team number 2, please?
I will. In the question of whether to emphasize acquiring new customers or selling more to existing customers, we came to the consensus that more emphasis should be placed on acquiring new customers, as that sort of opportunity will not stay the same as time goes on. Those existing customers that are available now may not be available in the future. So whereas with selling more to existing customers, that is potentially always an option with the existing manufacturing facilities that exist. So acquiring new customers should have the stronger emphasis. specifically type A customers, as you can then sort of increase manufacturing capacity as the new manufacturing facilities would be built. And then otherwise you are able to potentially form more stronger bonds with other companies. And then with the increased manufacturing facilities, you can then go ahead and spend some of the revenue on marketing expenses to also sell to type B, C, and D companies in order to maybe diversify the sources of income and the types of customers you have. And with the government organizations, the PSUs, that would sort of be recommended maybe against at this point, since it is a very competitive landscape and Pharma Electronics is not the largest, not the most powerful company. So at this point, it might be smarter to rather focus on companies that belong to the type A category. Yep.
Let's give Daniel a round of applause. Thank you. And, just to summarize, his group recommends that they should go after new customers, acquire them before others do, and mainly focus on the type A customers, which can help them to increase utilization of their new manufacturing facilities and so on. So my question, Daniel, is how should they organize for acquiring new customers? Who should be doing this? How should they go about it? Is there did that come up in the discussion at all, or could you try to answer who's the best person or the team that will help to do this acquisition of new customers, because they haven't been doing it before?
I think in the context of the narrative with, if I remember his name correctly, Anuj, who is a more like recent addition to the company. He appears to have, a more contemporary scope of the existing clients that are, potential customers. And so with his, prior experience and education as well, he might be a very good candidate for sort of spearheading getting these new customers.
Okay.
But maybe also not leaving it just to him, perhaps also acquiring some sort of sales force. As we saw with like Varjo, they have their marketing specialist, but they also have quite a large sales force behind them to help out. So that same sort of idea can be applied here, that they should, find these potential customers through the marketing specialists and then have a thorough, sales force to actually then acquire them.
Okay, very good. So Anuj should spearhead the efforts, maybe even, be proactive in having some meetings with new customers, but to carry on, once the process has started, then he needs some more day-to-day help with following up and things like that. So they may need to hire some new salespeople, and then it would be best to hire people experienced with type A customers, right? Not just rookies, but maybe you steal them from a competitor, or you advertise and you acquire some experienced people, because type A requires a different kind of relationship handling than the others. So those are all good suggestions. So let me throw it open to any other class members. Do you have any questions or comments for what Daniel's team has recommended?
Well, if no one else has anything to say, I can add to this one, this one as well. I feel like the type A experts on type A are definitely really important. if you look at India specifically, I think it should be thought about. There's two things I think that you need to consider for those kind of experts. Is the fact that India is very fragmented. The different states have a lot of power, kind of like in US, except kind of even stronger. That they have their own laws and own rules about this kind of business. So you have to really look into what kind of companies you want to deal with, and you have to have like a broad set of experts around the area. The other thing is you definitely want people who can work with multinationals, because of how the Make in India campaign is currently. It's really encouraging Indian businesses to work with multinationals from abroad. So those kind of support systems would be really, really strong to have in your team. That's just come on.
Good. But they should go after national or multinational companies, right? The type A is defined as large ones. They're not small regional companies. So I don't know how much the different states' rules and regulations will matter. National companies have operations all over India, and similarly multinationals will take a view of the whole country. So I'm not sure how much the fragmentation will matter. These will be large key accounts.
Yeah, just from my perception comes from my mother has been working in India for a while, and what I've heard is that a lot of companies they go in India and that they are like do transferring, or they do business with companies that originate from other places, and it causes some sort of fragmentation. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's not important in this kind of business, but that's just
yeah. And thank
the kind
you for
the point of view that I have heard.
Yeah, that's good. So clearly whatever national and multinationals will have to comply with all the rules and regulations, and whatever the demands are on farm electronics, they'll have to abide by them. But in terms of organizing the sales force, it should be that you focus on the customer relationship with one point of contact, and then you work out all the other operational implementation issues as they arise. Good. Any
That's
other
a good point? Thank you.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions? Yeah, my question to Daniel and the team is, so you've identified this approach of acquiring new customers. Do you have any sense for how many they should go after in the short term?
We talked about it a bit, considering how much of an investment it is to acquire a new type A customer. If I remember from the text, it was specifically at least 71,000 USD, and then additional costs on top of that with maintenance and improving the facilities. With all of that considered, it feels right. I wouldn't say that we've gone and calculated the exact number that they should acquire, but definitely not go crazy with it. Keep it conservative and acquire just enough so that you can increase capacity, manufacturing capacity enough to then potentially go and expand how many products you want to sell in the future.
Okay. Thank you for your answer. Any other closing comments for this team? So thank you, Daniel. Good job. All right, let's go to team number 3, please.
Yes, and I'll be saying our answer. So, so yeah, ours was basically the question whether we should acquire new type A customers. And like Daniel's team, like team number 2, our team also believes that Pharma Electronics should in fact acquire new type A customers. And this is because the company has great experience with type A customers, and they have a strong 42-year-old history in the field already. And the company also has a great record of retaining customers, as in the past 5 years, they've been able to do this 8 out of 10 times. And rather than sticking to the old customers and only expanding the product scope, the company should find new customers to diversify their customer base to lower risk, as currently they're getting 75% of their revenue from one company and 12% from another. So they only have a few larger customers at the moment, so which is rather risky if in case they lose one of these customers due to whatever, maybe Corona restricts one of their customers and they have to totally cancel them out. And even though the initial costs of starting the new production lines would be high, the same manufacturing processes could later on be used if, for example, expanding to C and or D type customers, which could be possible in later phases of the company. And yes, the process of actually acquiring new customers is long as well as costly, but since the company is currently in a stable position with its current customers, the risk of failure decreases, and they would already have something to fall back on in case of failure with the new customers. And also, as Daniel stated, the PSUs are very competitive for a small company like Pharma Electronics. So in conclusion, we believe that Pharma Electronics should acquire new type A customers, as it will diversify the streams of revenue for the company, thus reducing risk, and it would also leave opportunities to expand in the future of the company.
Thank you, Rasmus. Let's give Rasmus a round of applause. Okay, so they have also made a positive recommendation to go after type A customers. It makes sense to diversify their customer base. The same process could be used later for BCD customers. They have a good track record of retaining 8 out of 10 customers. They are in a stable position to be able to take on the risks of going after new customers. So all of these are good arguments. Again, my question to Rasmus, how many type A customers do you think they have now, and what are the kinds of new type A customers they might go after? Have you given any more thought to what type of A customers?
Well, I would say that now, just thinking about this now, I think that they should probably stick to rather similar industries as what they're in right now, if possible. Obviously, it might not be possible. We kind of have to go with what kind of customers there are out there. But obviously, going with the same industries would be the easiest for the company. But I guess also, actually, now that I think about it, they should also avoid making deals with like competitive companies, so they wouldn't like make their current customers mad, because they want to obviously keep their strong customers. So something similar, but not a competitor of their current customer.
Right. You know, if you think about similar customers to what they have right now, it's likely that they're already taken, because this company has a 42-year history, right?
True.
They would have probably approached them, but due to some reason, they are just happy with their existing suppliers. So if you were to think about new industries, is there anything that, and I'm posing this broadly to any member of the team, not just to Rasmus, what are some other industries, type A customers that they could possibly consider? Any thoughts?
I can't come up with any.
There was some mention in the case that there is an automaker who uses robots in their assembly line who has shown some interest in a step-down transformer.
Right.
So, you know, the auto industry, at least from anecdotal evidence, might be something to consider, especially, you know, that particular automaker should be high on their type A new
Yeah.
acquisition list because they've already reached out to them.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess that's also an industry that's more evolving at the moment. So I think that would be like a possibility for new customers in that industry also, in like electric vehicles, for example.
Now, again, electric vehicles haven't yet made that much of an inroad in India. It's still a developing country, you know, so they've got plenty of growth potential for gasoline cars, but again, that's not good for the environment. So, but the customers have to be able to afford. And again, that's an issue whether EVs can yet be made at a price point that is affordable by the mass market. But it's good to think about these. When you're thinking of new customers, they're altogether different. So, what are their needs? How can we try to meet them, right? So, first of all, they have to probably think about the more sophisticated automakers who have robots, right, who make use of robots or need these kind of transformers. So there will have to be a lot of background research and homework done to come up with some short list of possible new customers. Okay, again, thank you, Rasmus. And now let's go to team number 4. Who will represent them?
So I will represent team number 4. So our question is, should Farm Electronics try to acquire new PSU customers? Why or why not? So after the discussion, we come to a decision that Farm Electronics should try to acquire new PSU customers. It should focus on a big major contracts because that will bring in a lot of quite a lot of revenue and also worth the lengthy process that Farm Electronics will have to make to acquire these new customers. So if they try to acquire new PSU customers, it will have some pros and cons. The pros will be becoming a direct supplier to Indian Railways, as stated in the case. They are already a sub-vendor, so they have an opportunity to become a direct supplier by pursuing Indian Railways. Farm Electronics, convenient electronic tendering with all government contracts worth more than $2,845. And interested vendors could use the e-marketplace portal to submit bids online, which will make it more convenient for vendors. And for the cons, becoming a direct vendor would require Farm Electronics to invest into new manufacturing equipment and the application fee for several quality certifications and workforce recruitment. It will also have to endure the lengthy vetting process, and small contracts provided limited returns, while large contracts involve intense competition against major corporations. For the large contracts, it is said that it involved intense competition against major corporations, but our team see that it is important to acknowledge that Farm Electronics has a Six Sigma standard, and having regular internal audits and customized quality control processes is a major advantage over these corporations, and it will prove to be a competitive advantage against these major corporations. Also, in order to secure PSUs, they would need to increase marketing efforts towards potential customers on the government e-marketplace, as currently the company does not generate a lot of business from their e-commerce channels. So in conclusion, I believe that Farm Electronics should pursue new PSU customers.
Thank you, Trin. Let's give Thin a round of applause. Okay, so your team is in favor of acquiring new PSU customers. You've given all the pros and cons. Let me ask other class members to raise any questions or issues. Do you agree with Thin's recommendations or do you disagree, and why? Let's have some discussion. So I see some hesitation, so let me go first. I think the recommendation to pursue the Indian Railways as a direct customer is a good one, because they've already had the history, they've supplied the vendor that supplies the Indian Railways. But then, is there any danger that might upset their current customer who is already supplying to the Indian Railways? So you're trying to short circuit the intermediary and go straight. Will that affect their relationship with the existing vendors?
Can I ask a side question regarding to this question?
Yes.
Relates to how much of the Indian Railways are owned by private enterprises compared to public or the government?
Yeah, they're completely government.
Oh, okay, just thank you.
Yeah. So Thin, my question was, will this, if they go direct to the Indian Railways, will it upset the relationship they have with their current vendor and their current customer? And are you willing to risk that? And again, this is for anybody in team number 4. We've talked about the network of relationships. It's not just the two, Farm Electronics and Indian Railways, but you have this other customer who's presumably you've been supplying for a long time. They may be even contributing 75% of your revenue so far, right? This may be the one most important customer, and by going direct and short-circuiting this customer, are you jeopardizing your current business? Any thoughts or responses? So you do have to worry about these things, and maybe you might think about the smaller tenders that go through the e-marketplace, which don't require a lot of marketing effort, right? I think let them start with the smaller orders, because it seems that if you compare PSUs against Type A customers, Farm Electronics has a better history with Type A customers. They haven't dealt directly with the PSUs. So it's somewhat unfamiliar territory. maybe they should start small, exploring. If we can supply the quality at the right price, because PSU customers are very price sensitive. It's government money, so they want to minimize the price that they will pay. So maybe if they just want to experiment and collect some data, is it even profitable for us to serve PSUs using the government e-marketplace, which requires less of a marketing effort than building a long relationship? That might be some way to investigate this. Also, you had some assumption that farm electronics has Six Sigma quality, which maybe the other corporations do not have. But we don't know that. I mean, large corporations generally are in a better place to implement standards and quality. Right? They have bigger budgets and they have more people to do that.
So yeah, we also saw that information in the case. So in the case, it said like Anuj believed that few companies adhered to the standards imposed by major customers for customizing quality. So yeah, we base our assumption on that information, and we think that it can be a competitive advantage when providing for Indian railways.
I think it can be a competitive advantage if you consider other small and medium companies comparable to farm electronics. But if you're competing with larger companies, they are more likely to have Six Sigma. But I will not push that further. Thank you very much for this team. Now let's go to team number 5, please.
Yes. So our question was about should farm electronics expand onto the or try to approach the C&D customers as well? And well, sweet and short, no. And the reason is really the fact that they don't have a lot of experience on these fields. First off, there's not a lot of their experiences with larger companies, and when they're trying to appeal to this kind of market, they would need to do a severe change in the way they approach business, and that's not really necessary when there are still other avenues they can take to expand their business. Right now, if they would go after C&D companies, they would have to try to compete on price, and also accept certain credit requirements that these kind of companies require. That would be point 2, is that there's a lot of different companies in C&D, on C&D size that don't have the capital on hand to pay for these kind of products, which requires longer payment times, which is always a liability for a company like Farm Electronics that themselves don't have that much capital to survive these kind of long wait times necessarily. Another point would be the fact that when expanding, or the business model, that third point would be that business model is the current reason why they're competitive is really about how they have been able to produce quality products, and more specifically to this company is that they've done the post-sale assistance program, which has been very successful at keeping their current customers. But when you're talking about a lot of small individual companies that you as customers, you can't really keep this kind of follow-up process going on with them because of the price of the sale compared to the amount of work of follow-up checkups for these small parts. So you'd lose the competitive advantage that you've been relying on, or you would have to do something very radical for that to at least work for these C&D size companies. And on the other hand, also then, when I think there was a really good point in what I mentioned earlier about the states which Sanjit was correctly said that, yeah, that doesn't really matter if you are dealing with A's and B's, or A's at least. It doesn't really matter that or multinationals anyway. It doesn't really matter that you don't have to know like all the states in and out. And I think that's a good point, actually. If you're dealing with C and D customers, you will have to have experts that know all the ins and outs of all these different states and such. Otherwise, you can't sell, or you will run into problems. If some D-size company orders a part and then suddenly that part doesn't meet some requirements in some states, suddenly you have to like start remanufacturing and stuff like that, which is problematic. I don't know if those kind of rules exist, but hypothetically speaking, at least. And then otherwise, just if you think of the current situation, which is a little uncertain at the moment, with in 2019 still, the fact that you're competing on price is just not generally a very good idea, considering that you are neighboring China, and China is selling goods in a very profitable manner to, or in a very, very cheap products. So it's, even though your quality and your post-sale systems might be really top notch, most C and D buyers are really, their bottom line is so tight that they are just looking for the smallest price, and they don't have the time to go through, considering their smaller management level scales, they don't have the time to go shopping around for each specific part. They just check the one that's the lowest price, and they will order that one. And in conclusion, yeah, for these reasons, you shouldn't really consider C and D markets. You shouldn't completely ignore them, considering that you already have customers here. Always letting down customers puts a bad reputation on you. So you should, of course, keep what you have. They still provide you revenue. It's still not unprofitable to be with them, but focus should be moving towards those larger A-size companies. Thank you.
Very good. Let's give Eric a round of applause. So I think you've done a good analysis. All your arguments are on target. You know, the C and D are small customers. They are spread all over the place. They are precarious in their financial stability, right? If they do give you an order, they might take forever to pay, right? So these are all, every company needs to prioritize its markets. You can't be all things to all people. That is the antithesis of marketing strategy. You have to pick and choose the best customers and go after them first, and then maybe when those markets saturate, that's when you go to other markets. So I definitely think that there is no need for Farm Electronics to go after these customers at all. The only thing is, since there is some desire on Farm Electronics part to explore, online channels and e-commerce, maybe they could just list standard products there and see if anybody wants to order standard things, but they must be very tight on asking for advance deposits or some, tight payment schemes, because that's one of the problems in India, is that people will buy and then not pay for long periods of time. So credit is extremely important. Very good. I like the analysis. Let's see if any other class members have any arguments to make in support or against going after type C and D customers. Okay, so again, a round of applause to.
Can I?
Yes.
Can
please.
I offer myself a counter argument?
Yes, please.
Came to my mind when you were talking. Sorry, this is just something that came to my mind. This might be. It actually might be really good to keep C and D customers on hand. Like you said, they have desire to explore different things. If you want to explore these kind of markets, there being a niche for that, the risk is so much smaller. Especially if you're working with new kind of products and you're expanding the product area that you're working on, doing like the kind of they had the system where they had like things feedback goes up and then they like improve the system. So if you like, you could do that on a smaller scale, and then you don't risk as much as if you do sell 1 million units to a company and then you just suddenly have to recall them, compared to if you sell 5 units and then you have to recall them. You mentioned about that, and I think that could be actually a valuable reason to at least have some sort of contact surface with them.
Yeah, but you know, when you get down to implementation, what is the investment? You need at least one person to be in charge of the e channel, right? They have to keep uploading stuff and monitoring it and all. So the cost benefit is one head count. You will have to hire a person with e-commerce experience. Against that, what do you think the returns will be? And that is the decision that they have to make, whether they want to give it a priority right now in January 19 or wait for a while, right? We all know that, during COVID, all e-commerce got a big boost. So if they made that decision in January 19, they might benefit from it, but it is difficult to anticipate that. But certainly as a learning exercise, they might get into it, but it will not be costless. They will have to invest in one person who can, do the e-commerce for them. Good point. Okay, so I really liked the presentations that you all made. Certainly the presenters were very confident, and I want to give them a pat on the back. But use this opportunity, the other folks in the teams, next time let's do other presenters so that you can practice. And the most important thing is to be able to do the Q&A at the end, right? Because sometimes the Q&A has as much of an impact as the actual presentation. So I would encourage that. Now, to get back to some of the content, it is quite clear that most of you feel that they should be proactive in terms of acquiring new customers. In general, the only companies that don't want to go proactively after growth are those who are in a very stable macro environment. You take a small farm in a very stable country like New Zealand, a sheep farm, they have maxed out their capacity and they're happy to just, grow and raise a certain number of sheep per year. They don't have much ambition. But look at this company, Farm Electronics. There's the son of the founder who's come into the family business, right? They have to at least provide for his compensation or his share of the profits as a shareholder. So initially it was only his dad and the employees. But when a new person comes in at such a senior level, you've got to be able to increase the revenue and profit so that at least his needs are taken care of in terms of compensation. So that's one of the reasons to grow. And then you look at his background and you look at his statements. Is he not ambitious, right? He's ambitious. He's the one who's considering these options. So it's very likely that, and his father has told him that, yes, go ahead and do the analysis. So the father is also not opposed to growth, because guess what? Every business needs to have some buffer for when the downturn happens. Whether or not it's COVID doesn't matter, but we know that business cycles are real. So you've got to be able to put away some profits for a rainy day fund. And that's where I think growth is an imperative for all private businesses, except those that operate in a very stable macro environment. Now, if that premise is accepted, then you have to prioritize the customers. And again, what I saw in the analysis of the teams is that probably type A customers are the best to start with in terms of new acquisition, because they have the competence and the knowledge to do this. What I read in the case is that there's only currently 4 type A customers. They've identified them by name, and 2 of them are contributing 87% of the revenue. So that's not a happy situation to be in, right? So you want to diversify your customer base, but look for, growing the existing customers should be the status quo. There are already salespeople serving those customers, and they are going to ask them for repeat business and getting the orders. But it is going after new customers that requires some more investment and some more reorganization of the marketing and sales. So it's a big deal. So it seems like type A customers come first, then maybe the type B customers, because they are somewhat similar to type A. Then maybe the PSUs on a learning basis, because again, they don't seem to have the competencies or the experience of dealing with PSUs, and PSUs are also pretty demanding in terms of low price. And then the C and D may be the last in terms of priority. Okay. So let me pause here. Anybody has any closing thoughts on the case? Anything that hasn't come up yet for discussion that was of interest to you when you did your analysis or memo? I don't see any more questions. So thanks for participating. I'll be reading your memos and then give you feedback on that. You have some homework due for tomorrow, so please work on that after class sometime. And with that, I'll close out this class. Thank you, and I'll see you all tomorrow again at 1800. Have a good evening. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you.